On tonight's edition of The Best Times, we discuss the impact of the squeeze between boomerang kids and the sandwich generation. We'll explore methods that older adults can use to prevent falls, and we'll see how the AARP Driver Safety Program is keeping older drivers on the road. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you. Hello, I'm Chris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. Millions of boomers are finding themselves squeezed between caring for aging parents and continuing to support their adult children who've moved back home. They are the sandwich generation. In 2012, a Pew Research Foundation survey revealed that 36% of 18 to 31-year-olds were living at home. And the research firm Hearts and Wallets reported that over 1/3 of boomers were providing financial support to their adult children and family members. There's a financial and emotional cost in the squeeze between the boomerang kids and the sandwich generation. Let's begin by talking about this generation that's squeezed, mostly boomers, I guess, squeezed between the aging parents and the boomerang kids, the millennials that have come home. Is this a new phenomena? And what trend is driving it? Is it new?
It's not necessarily a new phenomena. I think it's been around for a bit of time, but I think what's driving it now is that the younger generation isn't necessarily leaving as soon as we might expect them to. So they're staying around a lot longer. So you have people, parents in that middle generation being squeezed far longer than they expected to because of those boomerang children.
As parents, we're probably wondering, I think you're right in that assessment, but we're probably wondering, why are our kids hanging around? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, part of it's economic driven. The economy is more competitive for new jobs. Older workers are working much longer and not opening up spots for new, recently minted graduates to get those jobs. And people are working longer because so many people are living so much longer. And so while all of this is not a new phenomenon, there's just a lot more people in it now, and some are better equipped than others really to deal with it.
Have you seen that in your work?
We have. We have been planning for increasing life expectancy for many decades in our firm. So we were kind of prepared for that part, and helping aging parents. That's just part of the deal as the population. We've got 3 clients over 100 now. We have 9 clients in their 90s, and they're not new. They've just been with us decades and decades and decades, and they're still with us. But the returning millennials is relatively new, and there were always a few, but that percentages have really exploded in the last few years.
And what are you seeing in your work?
Absolutely. We see more and more employees come to us with concerns about their children, concerns about their parents, work stress, trying to work towards their own retirement, yet at the same time they feel a lot of both emotional and financial pressure to be there for their children and to be available for their aging parents as well.
Is there more stress from one side or the other, the parent side or the child side?
I guess it really depends, but I think that more parents feel like they have greater responsibility to launch those children than the aging parents. And if your parent is aging well without a lot of health issues, then there's not a lot of pressure there. But once your parents' health starts to decline, then they feel a great deal of pressure to provide support for them in their medical care.
I would imagine that in a way, one can expect a parent's health to decline, and you might have to help that parent in their old age. Not so necessarily with your children. You do expect them, they get to a certain point in their lives when they're young adults, and they're gone. They're supposed to be gone, right?
Right.
And they don't go. So I would imagine that's one of the stress factors, isn't it?
It is one of the stress factors, but surprisingly, parents spend a great deal of time trying to launch those children regardless of the age, because the children's success is the parents' success. So they spend a lot of effort, energy, dollars to launch their children to be successful people, because then they too feel like they've been successful parents.
That gets me to the question of the guilt factor. Is there a guilt factor involved there too?
I think there's a guilt factor involved somewhat in that. I think there's more of a guilt factor actually with their aging parents, because they're spending so much time and money with the children who are probably like mid-20s, mid to late 20s at this point. They're spending so much energy there that they're feeling a little guilty that they're not spending it with their parents who may need them a little bit more based on their medical issues.
Let's talk about the financial issues just a little bit, because this seems like a recipe that could ruin your retirement.
It absolutely could if you lose sight of the importance of keeping your own financial independence as a priority, because I mean, health issues for aging parents that are uninsured or underinsured can be extremely expensive. While at the same time, the Chinese water torture of a child who doesn't leave, and the health insurance issues, and the car insurance, and the filling the refrigerator, those things, they're not as big, but they just go on and continue, and you just start wondering, connecting the dots as if they're never going to end.
And I would imagine some people are in situations where they know they have to delay their retirement in order to cope with this situation.
They do, and there's always some resentment that comes with that. And in our work, where we're having our clients saying, you need to expect for at least one of you to be alive at 95, and the statistics are pretty compelling. If a man and woman are married at 65, there's a 36% chance that one of them will still be alive at 95. That's a long time for retirement. And so the age 65 number, which a lot of people have hardwired in their brains, is just not appropriate for most people.
You know, you mentioned with the millennials, should we just say no to our kids? I mean, is that an option, to just say no to them?
There comes a point in time where no is a complete sentence in and of itself to your children. And there comes a time where that's appropriate. So certainly if you have children who have disabilities, health problems, mental health problems, you want to be aware of the support that they need. But for other children, there comes a point in time where you want them to be successful, gainfully employed, looking for their own place. You know, it used to be where kids would go to college, and then they'd graduate from college and they'd launch into some career. But now kids are going to college and then coming back home and then maybe staying there for a period of time, or successfully out on their own, losing a job, some type of financial situation occurs, and then they come back home. So they've been successfully gone for a couple of years, and then they come back, and that's even harder. That adjustment is much harder.
Well, as a parent, how do you cope with that?
Certainly, I think you need to be open and honest in your communication with your child about what the expectancy is here. So if your child is coming back into the home, what's the length of time you're going to allow this to happen? What are the financial responsibilities of that child living in your home? Are they paying rent? Are they paying a portion of the groceries? Are they doing their own laundry? Our job is to help them become independent. It's not to coddle them at any age. So those lines of communication need to be open and very clear. I would suggest that there even be a contract. And it certainly doesn't have to be a legal contract, but there be a discussion around the table with written things down. You sign it, I sign it, and let's move on.
Have you seen situations like that?
Our perspective is usually limited to the financial side of it. And our approach is to say, we want to help you achieve these goals, which is at some point being financially independent. That involves you doing X, Y, Z, usually saving a certain amount of money. We call it PYF, pay yourself first. After that is done, if they're are resources left over to help children, fine, that's fine. But it's a matter of prioritizing, which is if you allow that to overtake all the other goals, because those things are further down the road, you can get into trouble quickly.
Does this squeezed situation affect men and women differently?
I think it does. Women tend to take on a little bit more of the emotional toll of the squeezed generation, in addition to doing a lot of the caretaking of the aging parents. So women more often, now certainly men do this, but women more often are the ones who accompany a parent to a doctor's appointment or to grocery shopping or whatever it is that they may need. So it certainly impacts them in those ways. And then when you're working with a couple around these issues, they may have differing opinions as to what should happen with their children. So you might have one part of the parent wanting to provide more for the child than the other parent wanting to provide. And so now there's disagreement, and sometimes it impacts the marital relationship as they raise these children.
Is the answer in situations like that to get together as a family, to talk it out? Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems like you have to have everything out on the table and open.
Absolutely. Open communication is key to solving all of these difficulties, but we don't always work in a society or in families where open communication is the key. So I certainly think that that's a coping mechanism and is a successful strategy, is to sit down and hear from all parts of the family. So, Dad, what do you think about this? Mom, what do you think about this? And hear from the kids, because they may have a great point, and maybe a compromise is the best solution here.
Are there support groups for something like this?
I have not heard of a support group for the boomerangs, but I am sure that out there, there's so many home care agencies that certainly offer supportive groups.
There are caregiver support groups for that side of the issue.
But not necessarily for the
millennial side.
I think that's called happy hour.
Perhaps so. Maybe I was going to ask you how you cope with this. Maybe that's the way you do it. But let's close out with your best advice to someone who's in that squeezed situation. Mm-hmm.
I think along the lines that you said, pay yourself first, I think that they also have to take care of themselves first. So don't forget your own health. Don't forget your own emotional needs. If you always do something with friends on a Thursday evening, make sure you continue to do that on a Thursday evening. Take care of yourself. So to pay yourself first. Mm-hmm. So that's one, I think.
And you said, obviously, pay yourself.
Well, and remember that the best gift you will ever give your children and your parents is to very fiercely guard your own ultimate financial independence. Because if you jeopardize that and to take care of them during this time, they may or may not choose to repay that down the road. If you guard that independence, everything else, will usually fall into place, but you've got to really guard that fiercely.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both for being on The Best Times. Nice discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
For many older Americans, the fear of falling is very real. Statistics from the National Council on Aging reveal that every 13 seconds, an older adult is treated in the emergency room for a fall. And every 20 minutes, a senior dies from a fall. But there are ways to protect yourself and overcome your fear of falling. How big is the problem of falls?
The problem is huge. A third of adults over age 65 are going to fall annually.
The financial cost, direct medical, is about $34 billion in the U.S. population.
It's the leading cause of ER visits, emergency room visits in this population. And it's also one of the leading causes of accidental death in the geriatric population.
Who is at risk?
The people who are at risk for falls, who have the highest risk, are the people who don't take risks. And when we think about that in our older adult community, those are shut-ins. People who are at home, maintaining themselves in their house. They may be fully independent there if they have an external assist, but they're not taking that activity and that time to get out of the home.
Both men and women are equally at risk. The sequelae of the fall might be slightly different. When a man falls, unfortunately, his rate of death increases. When a woman falls, her rate of fracture increases.
Is age a factor?
Age itself is not a factor, but what you do as you age, I believe, is a factor.
As we get older, the rate of falling increases, as does the injuries associated with the fall.
How can falls be prevented?
So, two major things. A, it can be internal by making the person stronger, or B, external by modifying the environment. So, exercise is imperative.
When we look at types of activities that may reduce falls or reduce the risk of falls, the key component seems to be a balance component. One of the activities that seems to be the gold standard is Tai Chi.
So we need to do balance exercise, strengthening exercises, coordination, endurance, and even cognitive exercises.
What dangers exist in the home?
When we consider the home or any environment, the two keys that I really try and bring in are lighting and slips.
What we see oftentimes is the carpet is a little bit frayed, and there are some perhaps throw rugs on the floor or cords on the floor that someone might trip over. Those all should be addressed.
Is there sufficient lighting that you know where you are in your environment and you can become aware of your environment?
People also tend to, when their balance diminishes, they tend to become furniture walkers. Well, they're the ones that walk around and kind of touch every piece of furniture or the wall in a certain place. And sometimes the furniture might move, and that becomes a hazard.
The other thing with slips in walking around your own home or your own environment is, do you have a clear path? Otherwise, you're starting to become aware of, how do I avoid all these pieces? And you become more fearful.
Does fear of falling increase the risk of falling?
The fear of falling and falls themselves seem to have a downward spiral where you have fear, so you reduce your activity, which reduces your capability, which makes you at more risk for fall, which increases your fear, and you have this downward cycle. So being active and having an activity choice really seems to improve quality of life, reduces the risk of falls.
The slow, methodical movements of Tai Chi may contrast sharply with the common image of an exercise activity, but numerous studies have shown its effectiveness in fall prevention, in some cases reducing falls by up to 45%. In fact, the Centers for Disease Control has singled out Tai Chi as a prescribed exercise program to prevent falls and control the fear of falling. Sheila Ray and Richard Link teach Tai Chi and know the value it has in fall prevention.
Tai Chi has the ability of the stepping helps prevent fall prevention by shifting the weight from one leg very slowly to the other leg.
The slow, controlled movements of Tai Chi help build strength in the internal muscles in the core and the stabilizer muscles.
It helps with situational awareness. The first thing we talk about in Tai Chi is posture and breath and where your foot is going, where your hand is going. So it involves your mind as well as your body.
It's really going to help people with being upright, stable, their posture, and also help them with getting rid of the fear of falling.
There are 5 different types of Tai Chi. Richard and Sheila teach the Sun style, which promotes mobility and agility, and it can be performed either standing or seated. But as Sheila points out, the real value of Tai Chi for older adults goes beyond good posture and balance.
I think more than anything, Tai Chi gives people confidence, and backed by the research, we know that it is good for fall prevention.
For more information about fall safety, go to the website of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Do you consider yourself a safe and knowledgeable driver? Well, here's a question for you. Where do most accidents involving older drivers occur? Is it A, roundabouts, B, construction zones, C, intersections, or D, interstate exit ramps? Watch this next segment closely and you'll answer this question correctly and learn how to keep yourself behind the wheel. Driving is something we've all done for more years than we'd like to admit. But despite our years of experience, it's a skill that can grow rusty with age. For over 25 years, AARP has offered a driver safety program designed to refresh those skills. And as an added benefit, course completion entitles you to an insurance discount. George Coleman is the state coordinator for the program.
The world is changing so fast every day that we need to be aware of all the changes, The cars are changing, the roads are changing, things like that. They need to be aware of their body changes too. We try to go through with seniors to make them aware of the changes.
The classroom course is divided into 2 4-hour sessions and covers a broad range of topics, everything from seatbelts to stop signs. And new automotive technologies are covered, things like ABS brakes, backup cameras, and crash warning systems.
You need to know what the technology is when you buy a car. In one of our videos, some lady was talking and said, well, hey, I found out what this was for today, Well, what if it had been an important feature of that car? And she just found out what it was for.
Statistically, drivers aged 50 to 75 are involved in no more traffic accidents than younger age groups. But beyond age 75, there is an increase in accidents, and driver deaths per mile driven are substantially higher after age 75, a factor of the frailties of old age. Intersections are where most crashes involving older drivers occur.
Intersections are the worst for seniors. It's more people, they get confused. They make a left turn in front of a car coming at them too fast. They don't realize it. They try to make left turns and stuff. So we preach a lot on intersections and how people treat intersections, things like that.
The course offers strategies to address age-related shortcomings such as reduced vision or hearing and slowed reaction times. It covers various road and highway conditions and addresses the sometimes confusing number of signs and signals. The goal of the course is to keep older drivers behind the wheel for as long as possible. But our changing health condition means someday we may have to hand over the car keys to our children. George has some advice about having that conversation with mom and dad.
With mom, dad, let's take a ride, Let's still take, and maybe start pointing out, dad, you're kind of getting over the headline, or mom, whatever the case. Point out little areas that you see, and say, mom, I love you, or dad, I love you dearly, but, I see things that you might, and I want to keep you around as long as I can. But you try to point something out to them.
The sad fact is 4.5 people die in car accidents in this country every hour. Knowing your car, knowing the rules of the road, and knowing yourself are the keys to staying safe and staying behind the wheel. With 78 million baby boomers heading toward retirement, the number of older drivers on the roads will increase significantly in the coming years, and that will underscore the need for education programs to keep older drivers safely behind the wheel. George has one final bit of common sense advice.
Don't get out driving in the early morning rush hour traffic and the afternoon rush hour traffic. Generate your appointments where you're in the middle of the day or off traffic jams, things like that.
If you'd like more information about the AARP Driver Safety Program, go to their website. Classes are offered monthly in a variety of locations. There's also an online version of the program. And what about our opening safety question? Did you get it right? Intersections are the most dangerous situations for older drivers. Failure to yield right-of-way at intersections is responsible for 35% of all traffic violations for drivers age 55 and older. Want more information about life after 50? Go to our website, wkno.org/besttimes, and send us your feedback and story ideas to besttimes@wkno.org. That's all for this edition of The Best Times. Please join us next week for more stories about life after 50. Until then, I'm Chris Hardaway. Thanks for watching. Good night. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you.